you ever made a bucket list of things you want to do or accomplish or see while you're on Earth? I've done several. They kind of wind up in the middle of journals, and then the journals go out in decluttering efforts. And so I make another one, and that's probably good because the things that we want to do change. But I did have an interesting experience a couple of years back. I found a bucket list that I made in the late 1980s. So I was in my 30s, and astonishingly, I've accomplished everything on that particular bucket list except for one. And that said, make a real difference for cows in this lifetime. Now, looking back on something that I wrote long, long ago, I don't know why I said cows and why I didn't say farmed animals or all animals, but for whatever reason, I said cows. Now, maybe that's because I was feeling guilty because I kept going back to cheese. It took me years to get from lacto-vegetarian to fully 100% of the time vegan because of cheese and yogurt and ice cream and stuff like that. Or maybe it was because just a few years prior, my daughter had come into my life and I breastfed and came to know that incredible bond between a mother and an infant that's really like nothing else on earth. For whatever reason, I wanted then and continue to hope to make a difference for somebody, somehow, somewhere, and especially for cows in this lifetime. And guess what? In this episode, you and I and my wonderful guests together are going to be doing just that. Hi, everybody. I am Victoria Moran, and this is the Main Street Vegan Podcast. What a pleasure to have you with us today or this evening, wherever you are and whenever it is. And have you guessed? We're going to be talking about cows, but don't go turning it off. Don't think we're going to be talking about all the horrible suffering that cows go through. And yes, they do, but this is the Main Street Vegan Show. So almost anybody listening already has some idea about that. And there are plenty of places to go to find out more if you need that information. What we're going to be talking about today is cows, who they are, what they're like. We're going to talk about their beauty and their personality and this lovely, lovely book, Voices of the Herd, photographed and written by my guest, Mark Peters. And guess what? Guess what? Guess what? This almost never happens. We have a giveaway copy of that book. So I get to keep mine, and one of you is going to get one of your very own. So keep listening, and we'll find out how somebody's going to win. And in the meantime, here's my guest, Mark Peters, an animal rights photographer whose work documents the inner lives and relationships of rescued farmed animals living in sanctuaries. Over the past decade, he has photographed cows across 10 sanctuaries, creating portraits that challenge how we see and relate to them. He is the author of Voices of the Herd, Portraits of Rescue Cows, and Their Sanctuary Stories. Welcome, Mark.
Well, thank you so much for that introduction, Victoria. I'm a longtime listener. It is wonderful to be here.
Well, it is so cool to have you on the other side of the camera and the microphone today. So take us back. Take us back to how you became vegan and how you became an animal rights photographer.
Sure. So, the first time I visited a farmed animal sanctuary was 17 years ago when I was on the verge of becoming vegan. I'd been attending Buddhist meditation classes for some time, intentionally wishing joy and contentment for all living beings while still consuming animals in all the various ways we do. I became vegetarian mostly, but my heart really wasn't in it. It felt like something I should do and not really something I wanted to do. My wife, Elisa, and I had just started dating, She was already vegan and was taking a gentle, positive approach with her new boyfriend. She suggested we attend Poplar Spring Animal Sanctuary's open house. They're in Maryland, just a couple of hours from us. Oh my gosh. First, we met a couple of pigs who ran up to us and rubbed themselves against us, and they tried to purloin the energy bars in our pockets. Uh, One of them even rolled over for belly rubs. And then a staff member put a hen in our arms, and I could swear this hen purred. She was just so content. She closed her eyes, and I could just feel her warmth against my chest. And then we went in with the goats, and the goats they followed us around and they begged to be petted. And something changed in my heart. I no longer saw these as categories of animals, as abstractions. They weren't just pigs and chickens and goats. It was, this pig and this chicken, this goat, and so it really changed something in me. A little while later, I asked Elisa if we could sit down and watch the documentary Earthlings together. And I, I broke down and sobbed, and that was it. We were both vegan from then on. That first visit with the farmed animals, it it planted the seed for what came next, including my photography.
That is absolutely lovely. So the photographs in this book are exquisite and extraordinary. You really do capture the souls of your subjects. And, some people say, well, animals don't have souls. You look at these photographs, and they would have a hard time supporting that position because that's what comes out. So when I was first going through the book, I just assumed that you were a longtime professional photographer, perhaps a portrait photographer of humans, and you learn through looking at humans how to look at others. But you started this with the animals.
That's right.
How'd
That's
that
right.
go?
Well, can I tell you something? Guess
Yeah.
what?
What?
The first time I met a cow in his pasture, he walked up to me, stepped in close, lay his long neck against my chest, and he licked my face. It felt like when my wife and I are sitting on the couch with our dogs, and then they're licking our faces, except that this dog would fill the couch and then some. This his name was Alexander, and we were visiting farmed animal or farm sanctuary in Watkins Glen, New York. Um, During the same visit, we met a cow named Coco, who was leaning over one of her herd mates and licking her back. At the time, I thought that this was just a kind of a quirky and wonderful behavior. The staff member said that she licked all of the members of her herd. At the time, I didn't know that this is a common way that cows socialize with each other, that how they bond with each other. Grooming, similar to charismatic animals like um, monkeys and elephants, they groom each other. Um, when they groom each other, they release calming neurochemicals like oxytocin, and the act of grooming kind of builds bonds and trust with the other members of their herds. I uh, I, I I had been photographing for a long time, just architecture, buildings, bridges, and so forth, and learning how to photograph intentionally. Um, but nothing really spoke to me at the time. I deleted most of the photographs that I took, and then one day, Poplar Spring uh, posted this photo. Um, they had taken in a pregnant pig named Libby, and she'd given birth to 8 piglets. And in this picture, she's walking through the snow, and behind her is this train of 8 piglets following her. And I thought, oh my gosh, it was like a bolt of lightning. I thought this kind of thing, these kinds of relationships, this happens in sanctuaries. I've got to see this. So I called one of the sanctuary co-founders, Terry Cummings, and she invited me to come out and spend as much time as I wanted with their farmed animals. Uh, I'd go out typically a couple of times a month and spend all day. After some time, she said I could come at any time that I wanted, just let her know in advance. And so I would come before dawn. Um, at that hour, there's really nobody up and about. There's nobody outside of their barns except for the cows. Now, Poplar Spring is on 400 acres of pastures, fields, and woods. And here I would be with my flashlight running around frantically in the dark in my muck boots with my camera jostling around in my camera bag, trying to find these cows before the sun came up. And uh, I would, it sometimes took me an hour or more to find them. But when I would sit down with them and I would drink my coffee and I would watch them wake up and go about their business. One by one, they start grazing, and when they were done, when they were full, they would start grooming each other, and they would kind of go off sometimes in pairs, and so so I got to spend all this time with them and learn a lot of their behaviors. Their relationships are fascinating. When we think of charismatic animals like gorillas, elephants, or whales, we might say, "Oh, sure, I would believe their mothers are protective. Sure, I believe they're curious about their surroundings, and sure they care for weaker members of their group and grieve for lost loved ones." But the same is true of cows. There is all this evidence to support this. It got me to thinking. You recently had Melanie Kaplan on as a guest. She wrote about dogs in biomedical labs, and I was thinking, what if all we knew about dogs was what we learned from test reports and from products that had been tested on dogs. And we thought of them as just these creatures that were just born to be biomedical test subjects. What if we never knew them as animals capable of joy and sadness and goofiness and all these things? It's the same thing with cows and other farmed animals. We, uh, for the most part, only know about them. Well, all we know about them is what we have learned from, eating them and using them. We see them as a function rather than seeing their truth.
And because when you approach a herd, you're not going up to like a litter of puppies that everybody has been talking about cuteness for all their lives. These are animals, particularly in sanctuaries, who have not had good relationships most of the time with humans. So, what does it take to be accepted and even be safe? They're large animals.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Contrary to the popular impression of cows, they're not just gentle giants. They, some of them are wary, some of them are playful. Yeah. So my approach is pretty much the same whenever I visit a new sanctuary and meet a new herd. The first visit is always a meet and greet. I read about I read whatever the sanctuary has posted about the cows in their herd. I read each one like a fanboy. I read their their backstories. I read their if sometimes sometimes sanctuaries will post videos and I get to see, how a cow likes to be approached or scratched or whatever. Sometimes and I'll pocket all that information. So when I show up at the sanctuary, and I'm talking with, the staff member or the founder, whoever leads me out to introduce me to the herd, then I can say, "Oh yeah, that over there, that's so and so. I know all about him, and there's and there's this guy. Oh yeah, is that And so a couple of things. It kind of I prepare for prepare for meeting a herd, similarly to how a human portrait photographer would, read up about, their subject, who they're going to photograph, so to make the best pictures. I want to be as prepared as possible when I meet them. And then when I do meet them, when I go in with them, I'll walk into the middle of the herd and I'll just sit down and I'll just sit and I will try to radiate calmness and show through my actions that I am not a threat. I am maybe a little interesting, maybe. Cows are very curious. Uh, just at a side, I've sometimes, I always, I tend to put down my camera bag, and when I want to lie down on the ground and photograph from the ground up, and invariably someone comes over and sniffs it and pushes it like a ball. I am amazed. I have never had to send in my lenses to Canon for repairs. I can, which is a good thing because I hate to have to put down destroyed by cows on the form. But so anyway, uh, then when I after the second or third visit, then the the cows are used to me. Um, when one comes over to me, I'll get down, typically on my knees. I'll bend my face down, and they bend their head down, and that's just kind of a way of kind of showing that I'm not a threat, and the cow shows that he or she isn't a threat, and that's that. I'll reach out and see if they want a little chin scratch and rub their side, and um, so it's it's different with all the cows, but it's just a matter of building trust with them. And then when I when it's time to take pictures of a cow, I try to capture relationships. Relationships to me are really important. I like to show that cows have relationships just like we do. If if no one's interacting with each other, then uh, I'll look at a particular cow and ask myself, what about this cow do I respond to? What moves me? Is it the way that she lifts her head to sniff the breeze? Is it the peaceful, meditative look in her eye, or her powerful gait as she moves through her world? I want to capture moments that don't simply show a cow, but hopefully show viewers something of this cow.
Wow. So you've told us how you make friends with a cow. Doesn't sound very difficult. Maybe take some time, but tell me about their friendships. I've understood that they not only kind of like the other cows in their herd, but they have favorites. They have besties. True?
It's true. It's true. Friendship in among cows, it manifests itself in myriad of ways: companionship, comfort, reassurance, protection. And yeah, many cows have a best friend. When they're with their best friend, their heart rate drops, their cortisol level drops. They want to be with their best friend all the time, and so frequently they'll synchronize their nap times so that they're grazing at the same time and napping at the same time. One friendship that stayed with me is Tito and Lucky at Love and Arms Animal Sanctuary in Colorado. Tito had lost his best friend and for months was visibly grieving. And then Lucky arrived. And I won't go into Lucky's story because it's pretty complex. It's pretty big. It's pretty amazing. I encourage listeners to pick up the book. But so Lucky arrived at Love and Arms, and as all the cows do, they're put into quarantine for a period of time, to receive vaccinations and so forth, their medical checkup and all of that. Well, Tito wasn't having it. He sniffed and he looked and he said, "You're my new best friend." And he broke down the fence to get to Lucky. They played with each other and they groomed each other, and that was that. They have been besties ever since. I visited a couple of years after Lucky arrived, and they were still playing with each other, still nuzzling each other. It was wonderful.
Mm. So
And
go
I'm sorry.
ahead. I was just
Uh,
going to say, are we finished with Friends? Because I wanted to ask you something else, but I'm happy to hear more about Friends.
oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, sorry. I can go on and on. I know the podcast isn't going to we don't have forever, but I just want to say one more thing about that's tangentially related to friendship, but just more about their emotions. Cows are exquisitely sensitive to the emotions of those around them. It is called emotional contagion.
Mm.
The fear or the pain of an individual can spread to those around her. And likewise, the same with calmness. Frequently, one cow will be she'll be chewing her cud and relaxing, meditating, and then she'll lie down. And the cow next to her will lie down, and so forth and so on around the herd. Uh, or with joy, when the cow herd is led into a new pasture, invariably one cow will start to run and jump, and then another one will pick it up, and the next one, and it kind of sets off this kind of celebratory wave. But what I find really fascinating is it's not just this emotional contagion doesn't just apply to um, other cows around them. Rosie's Farm Sanctuary in Maryland posted a video just recently of one of their pigs named Winston, who needed to have his hooves trimmed. They had him on his back, and they were trimming his hooves, but he was scared. He was frightened, and he was squealing loudly. And the pig pasture, it borders the cow pasture, and the cows at Rosie's were moving around in circles and moving loudly. They were crying. They were so upset at the emotions that their friend Winston, the pig, was experiencing. And it's just it spending time with them. It's clear that friendship isn't something we project onto them. It's something they genuinely experience.
Mm. Oh, that's so beautiful. Now, I know in this lovely book, you have been to several sanctuaries and you've met a lot of cows. So I know it'll be really hard in the interest of time when I ask you to tell us your very favorite story of your very favorite cow, or the one who's your favorite right this minute, and then you can have another one after you tell the story.
Uh, yeah, you're right. Choosing a favorite cow does feel almost impossible. There is one who, when I look back over the decade of this project, who I tend to think of often. Um, Moses was born on a dairy farm. He was born, and the same day, the truck came to take the male calves to a veal farm. His mother had likely seen the same driver come in the same truck and knew what it meant. She had likely had previous calves taken from her. And so she kicked straw onto Moses to cover him. And she stood in front of him. And so she hid him from the driver. The truck left. The farmer saw this calf, and according to people who were there, he became furious. Farmers don't want the calves to be drinking from their mother's milk and to be decreasing his profits. So he put the calf out into a field to starve to death. Um, a woman who was visiting that day saw the calf, saw Moses, and asked about him. And when the farmer told her what he was doing, she asked if instead he could go to a sanctuary. So he agreed, and he and Moses, that's how Moses came to Poplar Spring Animal Sanctuary. When he arrived, he was bottle fed. He was loved on, as much as possible by all the staff. But even when his belly was full, he cried. He just stood out in the pasture and he just cried and cried, likely for comfort. The one thing that they couldn't give him, they couldn't take the place of his mother. There was when he was introduced to the herd when he was a little bit older and there was no fear of predation. He was introduced to his new cow friends. There was a an older blind cow named Emily who somehow miraculously was able to make her way all over the sanctuary grounds. Um, but she stayed with him and was his nanny for the time when the herd would go on their way. It's hard to explain why Moses is my favorite. He loved humans. And you know how some people say they have a heart dog? For so many people, Moses was their heart cow. Just a very special soul who understands them and makes the perfect companion. Whenever he saw me, Moses would walk over and lick my chest and my face. It kind of felt like, sharing the herd's special handshake. He'd pretty much stand there while you stroked his neck and side, accepting as much love as you could spare. It was an extraordinary feeling of closeness.
Oh my goodness, that is a beautiful, beautiful story. Wow. I hope there's some way that his mother might have a sense that he things turned out okay for
Well,
him.
they're hopefully together now.
Yeah.
He's long since passed, but he's yeah. They maybe if there is a cow heaven.
Oh, I'm sure there is. And I wouldn't want to go to the human one if there weren't cows there and other animals too.
You and me both.
Yes. So I said earlier that we do have a giveaway copy of this beautiful, beautiful photographic essay books, wonderful, wonderful images of cows at multiple sanctuaries and also the stories of what they're like, how they got there, so that you can get to befriend them a little bit as Mark has. So we have a Main Street Vegan podcast listeners group on Facebook. And if you are a member of that, or if you become a member of that, then I would like for you to just write why you would like to get your very own copy of Voices of the Herd. And then I'll get some people who aren't me to decide which one they think they want to send this book to. So we're going to give that, let's see, 2 weeks. So we're going to go into like the middle of February. Let's just make this a Valentine's present for somebody, February 14th, 2025. That's when we'll make the choice and send the book out, and we will be in touch with you that way. So just go to Facebook and either post right now if you're already a member of the Main Street Vegan Podcast Listeners Group. And if not, just ask to be a member and we'll say yes. And then you can tell us why you ought to be the winner of Voices of the Herd by Mark Peters. So, Mark, after these years with cows, what do you most hope that Voices of the Herd will do for the people who read it and the people they loan it to? The people who come over and see it on their coffee tables.
Uh, More than anything, I hope people come away with an appreciation of cows as individuals, rich with emotions and with a close and supportive social structure. It's hard to imagine 30 million cows slaughtered every year in the US alone. The number is just too big. It's an abstraction. Um, Photographs help to personalize the animals for a viewer. Um, if we can relate to this specific cow, we can feel for him or her. If you sit with an image for a while, you can sense the preciousness of the life depicted. It I, Nothing can match the power of the direct experience with rescued farmed animals, and I encourage anyone who can do so to visit a farmed animal sanctuary. But photographs can still spark empathy and inspire change. If the book does its job, people won't just learn something about cows; they'll feel a connection that's hard to unfeel.
That is really, really beautiful. So I thank you for writing this book. We have a cow project. It's been going on several years. I wish it were a book because I understand publishing. And I even wish it were a documentary because those aren't too difficult to make. I was part of a beautiful documentary back in 2019 um, about spirituality and food choices. And I just wish that the project that has my heart, that has my husband's heart, were not a feature film, but it is. And it's called Miss Liberty. And it's about a cow who escapes from a slaughterhouse. It's a wonderful story. It's got a surprise ending as good as Sixth Sense. Trying to make a feature film is the hardest thing I have ever attempted to do in this lifetime. But listening to you today, I just know we have to keep going because reaching people for these beings has incredible value. And thank you for reaching people for these beings in your lovely book and in all of the work that you're doing in the world. And thank you for speaking on their behalf. So, with thanks to you and to all the sanctuaries that you visited, and let's support the sanctuaries too, because heaven knows there are a lot of them and there aren't that many donors. So they can really, really use some help. So if you can open your heart a little bit, let's do a couple of things. If you don't win the book, let's buy a copy. And let's just all of us say, okay, I'm going to make a contribution to farmed animal sanctuary. Whatever you can afford. And size, I really think in this instance, doesn't matter at all because I kind of believe that there is enough love in the universe that it can take something small and multiply it based on the love behind it. That's my theory
Absolutely.
anyway.
I don't know how many times I've heard sanctuary founders tell me that even just like a $5 a month donation, it really helps enough people, helping them helps them get the work done.
Exactly. Well, God bless us, everyone. I want to say moo in honor of the unseen guests of this episode. So thanks so much to Mark Peters. You can also find him online at markpetersphotography.com. He is markpeters.photography on Instagram. And we'll put all that in the show notes at mainstreetvegan.com. And in the meantime, let's just all get out there and make Main Street vegan.